ladies and gentlemen, now hosting the RizzoCast, put your hands together for Steven Risotto!
What's going on, everybody, and welcome. My name is Steven Risotto. I cover the San Francisco Giants for SF Bay, and I'm the host of RizzoCast, a podcast that features current and former big league players, coaches, fans, media, and others who are regarded as some of the brightest minds around the game of baseball. Today's guest is Dylan Cumming, a 23-year-old right-handed pitcher that recently signed a minor league deal with the San Francisco Giants as an undrafted free agent. Dylan is getting ready to take on professional baseball for the first time after pitching at Chicago State and Liberty University. In 2022, he kind of built somewhat of a celebrity status when a viral video hit social media, kind of depicting, it was a promotional video, and he was in there singing, lip-syncing Celine Dion. To unveil Liberty's new jerseys. So you might have remembered it. You might have seen it on TikTok or Instagram or whatnot. Dylan is checking in from Giants minor league facility in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he's getting ready to pitch in some spring training games happening later in March. We talk about Dylan's deal with the Giants, the prospect of playing pro baseball, his pitch mix, growing up in baseball, and yes, that viral video, of course. All of it and so much more coming up next on RizzoCast. This is episode number 131. Let's get started. All right, we are here with Dylan Cumming, the newest San Francisco Giant farmhand, and Dylan is nice enough to take time out of his busy day and hop on the podcast. Dylan, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Hope you're doing great as well. Out here in Scottsdale, living the life.
So is it, because I've heard conflicting reports. I've never been to Scottsdale in my life. I've never covered spring training. Is it cold there right now? Because I'm hearing people say it's cold, and there's people that are saying there's a few days in a row where it's been 65. Give us a little bit of the weather update down there in the Cactus League.
Yeah, once you're out there playing catch and doing your things outside, it's pretty nice, especially being from Michigan. So like that 55 with a little breeze, to me, with the sun out, that feels pretty good to be out there and moving around and playing catch again. So I can't complain, but there definitely has been a couple days where it's dropped down, and we get up in the morning sometimes and it's 40 degrees when you're getting out of bed and rolling out of the hotel, and it's pretty cold. But overall, for the most part, when we're out there, it's pretty nice. And like right now, it's like sweatshirt and sweatpants weather, but it's a comfortable weather outside. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, no, there's nothing completely wrong with the sweatshirt, sweatpant weather.
No, it's when you, it's a comfortable weather.
It's when you start bringing out like the beanies and the
double layers.
Yeah, that's when it starts to get a little bit of an issue. So let's talk about kind of your new gig. A few weeks ago, or I guess a week ago, I don't know when it happened, but you signed with the Giants, signed a minor league deal with the Giants. You weren't drafted. What is this opportunity like for you, and how did that all go down?
Yeah, so I was training this whole off season at Tread Athletics in North Carolina. It's a big pitching facility out there, and was training there for a few months. Went to their pro day that they had in January, and threw in that. I did all right. I had a decent showing, and walked away from that with basically zero contacts from anybody, zero phone calls, and was basically thinking like, okay, well, maybe indie ball is going to be the route for me this first spring as a professional, and started reaching out to some teams for that. And next thing you know, I'm getting a text from the Giants, and it happened pretty fast. It was a text from a scout that had seen me that day, basically said, I like your stuff. I'd like to talk to you, talk to him. And it was a conversation I've had a million times before of like, yeah, we're interested in you, and hopefully we hear back, like we'll be talking to you again, which at this point and where I've been, it's like, okay, I've heard that so many times that I'm not going to get too excited about the Giants potentially signing me, because I've heard it time and time again. And lo and behold, the next day their big guy calls me, the scouting director calls me and says, let's get this thing going and we're going to sign you. So I was like, wow, that's happened a lot faster than I expected it to. And within 10 days, I was shipped out here to Arizona.
And how has that been? Because I know the Giants have put a lot of work into that minor league facility, and apparently it's really, really nice. Again, I've never been there, but I heard the facility's really nice. There's a lot of amenities. Am I right about that?
It's beautiful. It's top of the line. I mean, I assumed everything about being in a professional organization is gonna be nice, but it blows you away. It's the scenery outside of the stadium, outside of the fields is crazy. They got the Papago Park around you.
Yeah.
It's these big rock formations is awesome. People hiking out there, and like even just the turf, like as much as like just like the warm up area we run around in and get stretched before we go out and actually do baseball stuff is like impeccable. It looks like turf. It looks like artificial grass, and it's maintained like crazy. It's wild.
And I guess what were you kind of expecting when you inked that contract? I mean, coming out of college, you had a few really good college years, and now you're coming into pro ball. Is there anything that changes for you specifically? What are you expecting, I guess, going into pro ball your first year?
Yeah, there was a lot of like I had heard some stories from like guys that have played in the minors with my team at Liberty that I'd become friends with, and so I had a little bit of expectations of kind of like the people to meet and like who I was going to expect to see around here. But I don't know, it's kind of the same thing you've always done. It's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's you're going out there and playing baseball, you're working out, or your workouts are the same as they always have been. It's just in a nicer facility, and at the end of the day, you're tossing a baseball back and forth to somebody and playing catch off the mound like you always have. So it's not a ton different except for just like the little amenities that you just don't even think about, like the snacks after your workouts, the smoothie stations, the unlimited protein things that you want, like whatever you want is there for you, and you got no excuse to not get better. And that's the only difference. Which I was fortunate enough to be at Liberty University, where we had a good amount of funding for all of our athletics programs. So I got a little bit of that firsthand at Liberty for the last 2 years, and then coming here, it's like that to the max. Everything's extreme.
Yeah, limited snacks. What are they giving you guys?
Oh, we got anything you can think of. We get all types of granola stuff. We got a granola station. We've got a trail mix station. We've got Uncrustables until basically bottomless Uncrustables after lifts and stuff like that. It's just anything you can think of. Fresh fruits every day, salad bars, and it's awesome. It's a great setup.
So Michael Holmes, is that the guy that gave you a call, the scouting director of the Giants?
So I spoke to my scout first, Ross Pruitt, and then no, it was somebody else. It was maybe it was the assistant scouting director. Name's not coming to me right now. I actually talked to him today. but yeah, after he talked to me, it was the pitching coordinator, the assistant pitching coordinator, reached out to me, Clay Rapata, and talked to him, and then it was basically just, let's get you out here and get your physical going and see where you're at. And I was like, all right, pumped to do it.
Yeah, Clay Rapata, former left-hander. Did what have you done so far, I guess? What have these the last few days been like? What's the routine? Is it just kind of a morning thing? I know we're recording this right now kind of in the afternoon around 3:00 Mountain Standard Time, but what is kind of a normal day like for you down there at Papago and at the complex?
Yeah, so we've been ramping up. I'm 3 bullpens in a live session that I've thrown so far. So we're getting going pretty quick. Getting ready for the spring training games to come up here in the next few weeks. And I mean, I'd say the average day is getting on these vans that take us from the hotel to the facility around 9. We get there and you're kind of on your own after breakfast. They give us breakfast. They have a chef there, 2 good chefs that are really nice to us and feed us well. So we get a good breakfast. Then we get going on our own activation, kind of whatever you need to get done to get your body feeling good. And then we all meet together for a nice stretch out with our strength coaches. They get us feeling good again, and then we go out and do our plyos, do our throwing. And then depending on the day, you'll have either some like PFP, some pitching fielding practice type stuff. You'll have some situational stuff, some pickoffs, and then you'll go in and either lift or you go in and kind of do some post throwing arm care stuff. And then you're pretty much done for the day. With these first few days of mini camp and the first few weeks of mini camp, it hasn't been too long a days, but once these games get going, it'll be long. It's going to be getting there at 9:00 and leaving at like 5:00 from what I've heard. So
and then do most of the players at the complex, do they like hop on podcasts right after, or is it just you?
That's a question for them. I don't know. We all kind of go back to the hotel and just decompress, because even though they're pretty short days right now, you're still like you're trying to recoup and get ready for the next one. So, and with no off days, you're just trying to stay on top of your health and make sure you're feeling good. So we all kind of go to our separate ways and decompress.
And do you guys have any idea when when some of the games are going to start? Because I know that there's some matchups, whether it be interleague, whether it be another team bringing in their their squad. Do you know when any of that starts?
Yeah, I think March 14th is when our games officially get going, like the minor league spring training games get going. So we'll have some scrimmages leading up to that, of course, and then some live ABs throughout the rest of these weeks. But yeah, I think March 14th is the first day.
Awesome. Now let's get into you a little bit. I know that you mentioned that you're a Michigan guy. How did you kind of get into baseball? Did you play other sports as a kid? Give me kind of your upbringing, kind of as a baseball player, and maybe just as an athlete in general.
Yeah, I played tons of sports growing up. I was always trying to play basketball, whether it was super competitive or not. Same with football. I played in youth football for my whole life growing up. Baseball was one of the ones that I didn't play early on. I did like the pre T-ball kind of. It was like a basically learning the basics for like kindergartners, and hated it. It was the most boring thing in the world because it was very poorly run. We just basically would stand around and they'd have one kid hit and then you'd run on the bases, and there was no games. So it was very annoying to me. And as a little kid, I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I took probably 7 years off of baseball, and we played wiffle ball still. Like I played wiffle ball every day. Like that was just our thing. Our backyard, we played tennis ball, baseball, wiffle ball. So baseball was always a part of the childhood, but not the actual games. And then yeah, it was like one day when I was 12, my dad was watching us play wiffle ball, and he's like, Dylan, you want me to sign up for baseball? Like baseball, like the actual games would be more fun now that you're older. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so being 12 years old and not having played competitive baseball yet, and a lot of the guys that are playing travel ball now at 8 years old, and I kind of missed out on that whole wave of kids. But um, it was fun. I went and played little league ball for 2 years. Went on travel ball after that, and just kind of slowly saw myself getting better at baseball and kind of staying stagnant in the other sports. And it was like, okay, I might as well see what I can do in baseball. And that was kind of became my main sport after the first 2 years. But size, I was never the biggest guy, so I was always like, I love football, I love basketball, but as the kids started getting taller and bigger, and I wasn't, it was like, well, at least baseball I can still compete. And luckily got a little height in me towards the end of my high school years and got up to past 6 foot. But yeah, for a while I was the short, skinny kid that was trying to compete in basketball and football, and it didn't work out too well.
Well, I mean, that's a long time to kind of take off. And I know you mentioned you were playing wiffle ball. But like going back at 12, I mean, a lot of kids, their arms kind of develop at that time, and you're like walking right into kid pitch. I mean,
Yep, yep.
was there any like adjustment there going from like this league, I guess, where they teach you the rules to like a little bit of wiffle ball in between to like, oh, here's a 12-year-old pumping, 65 on me. Was there like
Yeah,
a little bit of
it
a
was.
change?
I guess I never really thought about it because I wasn't doing it to be competitive at the time. It was more of like, yeah, like I like wiffle ball. I like the rule. I like the idea of baseball. Like it'll be fun. So I never really thought of it as like this is going to be a challenge or this is a challenge. It was kind of just I'm going to go up there with my bat. I'm going to hit the ball if I can, and I'm going to pitch the ball when I can, and that's going to be it. I'm going to hang out with my buddies that are at the field. It was little league baseball. It wasn't anything super competitive, and no, but I had a blast. The first 2 years were super fun, and hit a lot of inside the park home runs. I didn't have a lot of power, so I'd slap it down the lines and run as fast as I could around the bases and get my inside the parkers, and that was a good time. So it was awesome. When I did that first league where you just learn the rules and the basics, I think I was honestly too young to even remember the extent of it. It was more of just like it was literally like we were little munchkins walking around just with our helmets down like this. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just walking around with our dandelions in our pockets. So who knows?
Yeah, they weren't teaching you like Bach moves, in that league at all, I'm sure.
No, no,
I'm gonna take a wild
no.
guess, Dylan. I'm gonna say that you were a Detroit Tigers fan growing up. Was that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So what kind of what do you remember about some of those Tiger teams? Because I mean, I always think back to like 2012 when they went to the World Series. There's that team with all the great pitchers that ended up
Yeah.
winning Cy Youngs, and Miguel Cabrera was there. What do you remember about some of those Tiger teams growing up?
Yeah. So that was perfect timing with the Tigers because I was first getting into baseball when I was 11, 12, and having the Tigers be that good when I first gotten into it, it was like this is awesome. We get to go to the ballpark. I was 45 minutes away from Comerica, so we were going there and watching games all the time, and tickets were decently cheap even when they were pretty good. And I just remember taking it for granted after a couple of years, like looking back at it, like wow, like we were watching Justin Verlander, David Price, we were watching all these dudes pitch, and I would get mad if Max Scherzer was pitching because I wanted to see Justin Verlander. Like we'd go to a Tigers game and I'd look up who's pitching, like oh, it's Max Scherzer, like oh, I wanted to see Verlander. And looking back at it, it's like holy crap, we were watching a potential Hall of Famer throwing uh, over and over again, and I would get mad seeing Max Scherzer pitch, but it was awesome. Miguel Cabrera was always an idol. I was watching videos of him all the time, even though I was little skimpy 13-year-old trying to hit the ball out of the infield, and I was watching Miguel Cabrera hit 450-foot nukes all the time for practice, and it was awesome. It was a great team to watch for like 3 or 4 years there, making it to the World Series, getting beaten by the Giants in 4 games, but
Mhm.
it's a great run they had there. And then I'm also an Orioles fan. It was Baltimore and Tigers, my two favorite teams. So when they competed in the ALDS that one year, I had to go to those games. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was the year where Delman Young he had like a big
Yes.
double down the line or something.
Yep.
I'm unlocking memories myself here
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Delman Young is quite the name drop, gotta say.
Delman Young, and he played for the Tigers too.
Yeah, that's right.
Delman, I remember sitting at home watching that game and like being so conflicted of like I don't even know who I want to win anymore. It's like Tigers are the hometown team, but I love the Orioles. Had a bunch of Orioles jerseys growing up, and Delman Young hit that ball, and I was like, yes, but no, I want the Tigers to win.
Yeah, all the people in San Francisco, back to that 2012 World Series, all the people in San Francisco, they always say, Miguel Cabrera is still looking for that Sergio Romo slider because that was all Romo threw, and then the one time he throws a fastball, it's right down the middle, and Triple Crown winner takes it. I mean, was Cabrera a guy like? I mean, is it weird seeing like some of those guys still playing? Like, you're in professional baseball now, like recently, and you look up and you see like, wow, okay, Verlander's still in the league, Scherzer's still in the league, Cabrera, it's his final year, he's still in the league. Is that kind of like a pipe dream to like kind of share a field with them at some point? I know there's not a lot of time left; those guys are getting older,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
is that kind of a pipe dream for you?
yeah. More so the younger guys, because I guess when I was younger and was watching them, I never really thought about like I'll be playing. Like my goal is to be playing with them at some point, because that was just
Mm.
it was not what I was not where my mind was at the time. Uh, as I got older, like end of high school, it was kind of like the younger guys, like the Bryce Harpers and the Mike Trouts. It was like okay, like at some point, like if I make it, they're going to be in the league. Like those guys are going to be around there. They were more the guys that I aspired to like eventually share a field with and strike. Like I want to strike those guys out. I want to get those guys out, kind of thing. And but Miguel Cabrera was more of just that's kind of an idol. Like he's just like this old figure that was like that's a legendary figure I get to see all the time at Comerica Park, and never really thought about like the idea of being with him or being on the same field or that kind of thing. But definitely idolized him forever.
Yeah, no doubt, and hopefully he goes out strong. I know he's had a
Yeah, I hope so.
few tough injury years in terms of his legs, but all the best. Definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest
Oh
hitters
yeah.
to ever play the game. I read that your mom she's in the Hall of Fame for Flint, Michigan for volleyball. Is that right?
Yeah, she was a freak athlete
And your
out
dad
of
played
Michigan.
volleyball too?
Yeah, they met playing beach volleyball professionally. My mom was basketball and volleyball at Central Michigan University. Uh, my dad was track and field in college, and then after college, kind of found volleyball, and he's tall and athletic and can jump really well. And I was like, yeah, I'll take up this volleyball thing, and they both became very good volleyball players and played professionally on the beach.
So did you like follow and start playing volleyball yourself as a kid, or was that just something you were never
I played
into?
a little bit. It was fun, but I had more fun doing other things. So it was kind of like if there was a chance to do it, I would play. Same with my younger brother. My younger brother plays a little bit more than I do. He actually played in some like travel teams and like played in some tournaments for volleyball for indoor. I never did that as much, but we were always around volleyball because my mom was a varsity volleyball coach at the high school I went to. She coached there for a long time. So growing up, we'd go to her practices and mess around on the courts and whatnot. So volleyball was definitely a big part of my childhood. Just watching so much of it and being around it, it was an awesome sport. But yeah, that's how they met.
Yeah, a little bit of an athletic gene there.
Yeah, yeah,
So I want to ask about, pitching wise. I was watching some of the videos that Tread Athletics was posting. I guess first of all, let's talk about Tread real quick. Pump them up. I mean, I know everybody's kind of got their off season, facility where they go to. Give a little time and pump up Tread, pump up what they've kind of taught you, and what's it been like working out there?
yeah. So this is my first year going there this off season. Basically, it was kind of a last second resort of like I need to go somewhere to try to get my name out there because I didn't get drafted when I was expecting to and that whatnot. So going there was awesome. It was like the best thing I talk about with all these guys that have gone there, and I asked them like, what do they think about your time at Tread? Like, regardless of how much you gain, or regardless of like the physical things you take away as a baseball player, just the atmosphere and the people you're around there is amazing, and that's something that nobody will disagree with that's been there. And like you're around a bunch of dudes who are grinding all off season to get themselves better, and they're excited for you to get better. There's no competition for the most part. It's a lot of just like it's a brotherly like area where you're all just there grinding. And that was awesome. Having a catcher on hand at all the times during the off season. Like there's just so many things you can't take for granted that like these big facilities like them, like they're expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. You can't just have a catcher at hand. You can't have TrackMan behind you at all times. Like there's just certain things that you miss out on going to a smaller facility, and they make it a top of the notch facility for sure. And it's an awesome place to be.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know that I actually had someone on maybe a few years ago who worked that drive line, and I I think I asked like It was a stupid question. I probably should have known the answer, but I was like, I've seen a few people, they go through there. They always say that they work at Driveline and they show up to spring training. They have added velocity and such. Who goes through Driveline? And they wouldn't answer because apparently at Driveline they sign like the non-disclosure agreement to where they can't disclose, who works out there. Um,
Huh.
so I mean, does anybody like notable come through Tread, or is it kind of like an up and coming place to train?
So they have been growing rapidly these last few years. I think I don't want to completely butcher this, but I want to say that they are founded within like the last 6 years, 5 or 6 years, and then it went kind of from like basically just some remote stuff and some local athletes that they were dealing with, and then they got to a small warehouse, then got to a bigger one, and now they're at this huge, massive facility that can hold 200 plus people at a time, and they've got 4 bullpen setups they could do, 5 bullpen setups they could do at one time, a bunch of TrackMan. Like they've grown massively, and like there's been, I want to say our pro day that we had 20 plus guys with big league service come in and throw in our affiliate pro day. So there's all those guys. Noah Syndergaard was in there for a little while trying to get some velo back. I know Kluber's worked there in the past. The closer for the Rays, I forget his name. Big, tall righty.
Yeah, I know, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Freaky fastball. Dude throws riding fastballs like they're taking off. I forget his name. He was there. Yeah, there's a lot of big leaguers. A lot of big leaguers come through there, and even if they don't come through, they're at their own facilities out west or wherever they're at in Florida, and they're using it remotely because we have some really good coaches there at Tread.
Mm-hmm. And I guess what could Giants fans kind of expect from you in terms of your repertoire per se, your arsenal of pitches? I'm gonna try to guess real quick because I saw the video. I saw the video and I'm gonna try to guess. I think I know my movements pretty good. I was a PO in high school, all through high school. PO, by the way, like that's such an unbelievable life in my mind. So I'm gonna guess based on the movements. Okay, you got a fastball, but it's more of like a sinker with two seam action. Okay.
Okay.
I saw a changeup mixed in there with like two seam tail a little bit. It might have been a split though. I don't know. It looked confusing. And I also heard somebody say, throw the split. So I don't know which one it was. There's definitely just a bolt, like some wicked slide piece there too. Am I kind of on the right track there? What's your arsenal?
That's the main three. So it's a sinker. I'm a sinker baller. I throw a low 3/4, so pretty easy for me to get some sink. Sinker baller, changeup that mirrors the sinker pretty much identically. It's got the same spin, same axis, and everything like that. It's just a 10 miles an hour slower. And then slider, which is my big sweeping pitch, which is it's my go-to against the righties for the most part. It's got a lot of shape. It's a very large pitch. It gets up to like 25 inches of break on it, which is pretty high, and it's a little bit slower than most like sweeping sliders that you'll see in the bigs, but just the pure shape of it and throwing it from as far over to the right side of the rubber as I do, it makes it pretty deceiving. So those are my main three. I do throw in a 4-seam there every once in a while, and no splitter, but yeah, tinkered with the 4-seam and I tinkered with the cutter a little bit, but yeah, the main three are the sinker, changeup, and slider.
Yeah, one of the videos has a headline saying like you're learning a cutter. So did the cutter just not did it not progress? Did it not, what's going on?
It was inconsistent. It was, when it was good, it was really good. It was getting cut ride. So it was hanging up like a 4-seam, but also still cutting, which compared to my other pitches, it was a very like oddball pitch from my arm angle. And some of like our lefty hitters that I faced there at Tread were kind of saying like it's hard to pick up because you're expecting sink over and over and over again. And now you see this firm pitch and it's coming in at you. So it was a good idea. I think it still is potentially there, maybe in a future season or something like that, but definitely needed some work on it and just didn't have the time necessarily to grind it and figure out what was going to make it more consistent.
Now, are you a guy, because like I know that, maybe, you're not a guy that's going to go out there and throw, 98, 99, 100. Do you feel like you rely a lot more on command and control and, out finessing guys instead of, having the velocity? Is that something that you've kind of mastered, trying to know yourself and know the movements and know the shapes? Because there are going to be guys that are going to, out velocity you, I guess, per se. But how has that been, kind of learning the art of pitching rather than, maybe blowing guys away?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just being conscious of who you are as a pitcher and knowing that like me throwing a muscled up sinker and having it miss up is not going to be beneficial to me, whether it's my hardest pitch I've ever thrown or not, because it's still not going to be hard enough. And so it's a lot about just really commanding the zone. The zone is yours to take over, and unless you've got stuff that's going to just blow people away, like you got to take over the zone and make them swing the bat. I'm a pitch to contact kind of guy for the most part, and I'll get more strikeouts against righties than anything, just because of my big slider. But especially like lefties, I have to make sure that they know that they're gonna have to go up there swinging and hit the pitch that I want them to hit, and not something that they want. Because, like you said, like I'm not gonna surprise them with a 97 up in the zone, not yet at least. Hopefully, when I get some weight on me and I've been in the Giants organization for a little while, I'll get some numbers up there. But yeah, as of right now, it's really just I'm a command guy for the most part and rely on my movement for the most part.
Hey, there you go. And the Giants, they have kind of this recent record of just like doing unbelievable things to pitchers. You know, Kevin Gausman and Carlos Rodon and guys getting multi-year deals left and right. So I think the same would go for their pitchers in their minor league system. And by the way, just from a non-journalistic take, the changeup down and away to a lefty is one of the best and most prettiest pitches in the game in my mind.
I love it. There's nothing better than getting a swing and miss on that.
Yeah, those ones. Yep. I mean, those are the ones that you play with in MLB The Show, and you're constantly throwing the circle change down and away, and it's so good. I guess this leads me into my next point. Do you work quick? Because this is now something that's being talked about quite a bit going into spring training. Are you a guy that's like a get it and go guy? Do you like to take your 35, 40 seconds? Or like what's kind of your rhythm on the mound?
I definitely speed up the game on the hitter. That's what I try to do. Even out of the stretch, I'm like a 1-1 to 1-2 to the plate. I'm pretty quick to the plate. That's kind of always been a thought of like, if I'm not gonna, like when I was at Chicago State, my first school was at, if I'm not gonna have the grossest stuff, I got to be able to at least control the run game. I got to be able to throw strikes, like just the little things like that. So that's kind of always been what I've done. And yeah, the pitch clock shouldn't bother me. I don't think that should bother me at all, unless something's going on with signs being incorrect and not being able to get on the same page with the catcher or something like that. But yeah, if anything, it'll be pretty much what I've always done. As long as I just don't pay attention to the clock and kind of do my own thing, I should be all right.
And I know in some college levels they have the clock. Did they have it at Liberty at all?
They did. Yeah, they were supposed to enforce it. It wasn't super strict. Certain umpires would get a little more strict about it, but I never ran into an issue with it. I wasn't one of those guys that would ever have to deal with it. I would say we probably saw maybe 3 or 4 like warnings throughout the year. Hardly ever, because you were allowed 1 warning in college. So it was very rare that somebody would get a warning and then mess up and do it another 20 seconds longer. So didn't really see too often.
Yeah, so pitch clock doesn't affect you. Interesting. Have you gotten the chance to work with PitchCom so far? And like, do they have that at the facility? Have you guys kind of toggled with that at all?
Yeah, so this year, well, let me go back to last year. I'd heard from last year that one of the A-ball teams was experimenting with PitchCom in the minors and stuff like that, and they kind of realized that unless all the teams were going to be on board with using PitchCom in the minors, it's kind of giving the teams that do have it an advantage. So they've cut that out, and only AAA is going to be using PitchCom this year. So we have not.
Oh wow, interesting! Yeah. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. And I guess some of the other rules, I guess, I mean, I could get your thoughts on them just a little bit. The pitch clock was the big one, and I think the next big one was definitely the defensive shifts. And I don't know how many defensive shifts there were in college. I mean, you only have so much information on these hitters. There's not enough to, determine whether a guy is more capable of grounding a 1-1 slider to the right side than, so I guess college, you got to use your head more than some of the data. So what do you think about banning the shift? Did you like having guys, over shifting behind you? Or, I mean, what do you think about that new rule coming into the game?
I was always super mixed on it when we would do shifts for me. So Liberty and a lot of the bigger schools, you'll actually find like a lot of these, the competitive D1 schools will get a ton of information. Like you'd be surprised on how much information you can get on some of these teams that you can get on. And it's even more so at the pro level. But no, we shifted a lot. We had an emphasis on pitching and defense at Liberty. And like my first year there, we were the #1 defense in the country for what do you call that? Like fielding percentage, with the highest fielding percentage of the country. And we prided ourselves on the ability to field ground balls and be in the right spots. And we shifted a ton. And it was always kind of 50-50 for me. Like I was saying, like you love to get that ball back at you and you're like, oh shoot, I just gave up a single up the middle, and you turn around and your shortstop standing there. Like that's a great feeling, but it's also a terrible feeling to get a ground ball with a guy on first, shortstop, and you turn around and your shortstop's not there. And it's like, oh my gosh. So it's a double-edged sword. It's I could take it or leave it. I'd say overall for the game of baseball, I'd prefer there not to be any shifts, or at least limited shifts like they're going to do now, where you can't go past second base, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, it does take away from a lot of the hitters, and it just kind of, I like not having the doubt of, is there going to be somebody behind me, or is there not going to be somewhere in this hole? Do I have to try to do something a little bit more to get them to roll over to the right side? And kind of takes that out of it and just kind of pitch to your strengths rather than pitching to a side of the plate to make them hit it too. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I've always been kind of more empathetic towards pitchers because I always look and I'm like, God, every rule that baseball's ever implemented has hurt the pitcher. It's like, in the 60s, pitching was just so good that they lowered the mound. And then, pitching was so good that they added a DH, and pitching was so good that they have to check them for substances every 5 seconds. I mean, pitching just like it's for whatever reason, like pitching takes over the game and a lot of people don't like it, but it's going to be interesting to see some of these new rules. And I guess finally, you kind of put things together this past summer, in summer ball, playing with, and this is an unbelievable team name, the Burlington Sock Puppets, in the Appalachian League. And I mean, you had a great few starts there. I think you appeared in 9 games. What was kind of different from what you put together down there in the summer league?
Yeah, I think it was kind of taking everything I had ever learned over the last year and a half, 2 years at Liberty, and just kind of putting it all out there for the most part, and not having to worry about necessarily we have to win this game, or I got to be more efficient because I got to turn around and pitch the next week and that kind of thing. It was a lot more of a free environment for a pitcher like myself, and being an older guy on the team, I was one of the older ones there.
Yep.
I kind of just got to do whatever I felt like was going to work and adjust it from there, which at school, you're worried, the coaches are worried about losing their job. They're worried about winning games. You gotta win your games and compete and win a tournament at some point. Versus in summer ball, a lot of the guys are just kind of getting their work in for the summer. The coaches are still trying to win, but it's a lot on yourself and just kind of doing whatever you need to get done. And I experimented a lot with things about trying to throw fastballs up as a sinker baller, which is usually frowned upon because it's like you're throwing a flattened sinker at the top of the zone, but kind of tweaked some things and got my ball to kind of ride at the top of the zone and sink at the bottom of the zone. And it was just something I never really thought to try at Liberty, because it's I can't be experimenting things in a weekend series where we have to win 2 out of 3 kind of thing. So kind of gave me the ability to try some things out and just kind of take what I already learned and take it to the next level. And I think that's exactly what I did. I threw everything that I wanted to and went out there and experimented, and things started working.
Yeah, and you mentioned you were one of the oldest guys on the team. Did you ever feel a sense of responsibility to take on a leadership role? I know you weren't there for long, but you're playing with 18 and 19-year-olds. Was there a point where it's God, this is ridiculous, but also was it an opportunity to open a window to kind of take some of these young guys under your wing?
It was at first, the first few weeks, or first week, I'd say, was a little bit of oh wow, I'm playing on a team full of basically fresh high schoolers. These kids feel so young to me. And my other teammate from Liberty, Tyler Germanowski, was there with me, and we both kind of thought the same thing because we were both older. And but no, after a few weeks, once we got settled in and got to know everybody, it was pretty fun, and it was a fun, refreshing environment to be around. And definitely, I wouldn't say I took any of those guys under their wing because they were all pretty competitive, D1 athletes for the most part. And it was cool to see kind of the things that they were doing and the things they were working on at their school, and bouncing thoughts off of things that I've learned over the last 5 years of college baseball, and kind of give them some insight on that kind of stuff. But I'd say it was a fair balance of it was a mutual helping. I told them some things, but it wasn't more of hey, let me go talk to you for a little bit, kind of take you under my wing. There was none of that. We were all friends for the most part, but yeah, I think it was a good learning experience for me to kind of talk about what I've learned over this summer with them, as well as how they can take it to the next few years of college baseball.
Yeah, I'm looking. There's another guy here who's 17 years old from China, Zach Keen. I don't know if you played with him, but
yeah, they showed up at the end of the summer. I only met them once when I came back and pitched a couple more times after the draft. Didn't get to know them very well, but they had some guys come in they were in the draft league. I think there was 3 kids from China that had came over and played in the draft league, and then when the draft league ended, they came over to the Appalachian League.
Yeah, 17. That probably makes you feel even more older.
Yeah.
So I guess finally here, before we wrap up, and you're not going to avoid this, Dylan. You're known for kind of making these really cool TikTok videos, and one of the ones that you did was a promotion for the jersey reveal for Liberty's jersey reveal for the 2002 season. And you came out singing Celine Dion and lip syncing. You were lip syncing, you weren't singing, but you should make one where you're actually singing. That would be cool. I mean, this went viral, blew up everywhere. I mean, what was kind of did you know it would go viral? How did that kind of all start?
It was it was an 8-man crew that put the thing together. We had our entire Liberty staff, like creative team, working on that. We had people holding the leaf blowers, people doing the lights, people throwing me the
Yeah.
bat. It was a whole production for sure. And I would say at first it was kind of like, this is a little goofy, like this is like, it's funny, but like I don't know if this is really gonna be what we do for a reveal of our jerseys. And then as soon as we saw it right afterwards, and they showed us like what it's gonna look like, it was like, okay, that's pretty good. Like that that might get some traction. That's pretty funny. And we were pumped for it to go out to the public. And then the next day when it did, it was within hours. Like within hours, I was out. We were in the middle of the season. It was probably like week 2 or week 3 that came out. And when that was going viral, I was seeing it everywhere. I was getting DMs from people across the world saying this is the best thing ever. I was getting reporters from places saying that, can we use this footage, like that kind of thing. And next thing you know, I'm at a restaurant in my local place in Lynchburg, and it's on Sports Center and Pardon My Take, and they're talking about it and Pardon My Take and stuff like that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah, anytime you get on Pardon My Take, that's a game changer for sure. I mean, I guess like video aside, because that's great and all. I mean, you got something out of it. All of a sudden now you're on like Cameo and you're making cameos for people. You're wishing random people happy birthday. I mean, it kind of changed you a little bit. I mean, did you feel like you were like famous for just a quick second?
Basically, I was actually recognized a couple of times at games. We'd go play at another school, and they like, oh, you're the guy from the video. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy from the video. And then even at Summer Ball, there was little kids that like would ask me like for an autograph or a picture because they saw the video and they knew I was playing with the sock puppets and that kind of thing. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, and I guess the main point was to promote the jersey. So I will ask,
Yeah.
the baby blue jersey, how was it? I mean, that's the main question that doesn't get asked. Fire, okay.
Those jerseys were fire. Yeah, we got a lot of hate from some SEC schools and saying that like they look like Ole Miss or they look like whatever, and it's like, okay, well, baby blues are not staple to anybody in particular. It's been going around for ages with the MLB. The Cardinals had them, the Expos had them, Phillies have been using them forever. So that no one claims the baby blues. So I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, the baby blues do not belong to any certain generation. I think they work just fine. And I mean, I did mention that you are kind of big on social media. Is that something that like, you take pride in doing? Like you take pride in kind of being a fun personality? People gravitate towards that kind of thing, especially in athletics when athletes are athletes are viewed upon as, athletes and not really people off the field. So is that kind of something that you've kind of put together and taking pride? That's a weird question, taking pride in your TikTok account, but I guess, do you?
No, not necessarily. I enjoy and I take pride in putting a smile on people's faces and just being a nice person and expressing myself whatever way that is. And the following came, but it wasn't something that like I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of this following that I have, that kind of thing. It's not like that. It's more just like if there was 500 people that would follow me, or if there was 50,000 on TikTok, it wouldn't make a difference to me. I enjoy doing what I was doing. I was making videos of my dog to start it off, and that was one of the things I just was doing to pass my time. That's where I first started getting a lot of followers and getting popular on TikTok was videos of my bulldog that I have. His name's Remy. Shout out to Remy.
But yeah, how's Remy doing? Is Remy in Arizona?
Remy's
with
great.
You?
Remy's not. He's back in Georgia with my parents. Yeah, couldn't get him out here, but he's doing well. Big fat boy's laying on the couch probably right now.
Well, we're hoping that Remy is listening because that would be huge for the listenership. I don't think we've ever had dogs listen, but it's pretty awesome. And it's cool that, by the way, that you posted that you were officially a Giant and you get this outpouring support from Giants fans. And what did that kind of mean to you? Because I mean, you went through and you responded to a lot of them. You said thanks. Everybody was kind of welcoming you to the Giants family. And what was that kind of like, seeing all that support?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It's similar to kind of like the feeling of like being at Liberty for the first time. Liberty has an awesome fan base, and they love their Liberty sports. And like leaving Liberty and going on this next adventure before I'd even really accomplished anything, just being in Burlington for the first couple of weeks doing well. I was getting messages from people all over at Liberty saying like, "Congrats, you're doing so well, and hopefully you get drafted," that kind of thing. So they were always on me. And then now joining the Giants organization and immediately getting some feedback from their fans saying they're glad to have me on board. It was awesome. It's cool, really cool to see. And responding to people is always something that I've like taken pride in. That like that's one thing that it takes me 2 seconds to say thank you and to say like you're welcome or do whatever it is online, and it can make somebody's day. So I'm always making sure I respond to people and make sure that their messages are heard to me, and I appreciate all of them.
Well, once these games start up in kind of mid-March, there's going to be some fans there, and you're going to have to work on your autograph. So I guess that's something, or you probably already have one that's pretty decent, I'd imagine.
It's all right. It's all right.
There you go. That's fine. Good enough. Dude, Dylan,
It'll
I
work.
appreciate you coming on, man. This was great. And I wish you the best of luck going forward with the Giants organization, and appreciate your time and appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. It's been awesome.
And of course, everybody can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast. Go check us out, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.